Boys, how are we all
Hey,
doing? Ready
bro. Boys, how are we?
for the podcast? Can see Scotty there in Bali, a nice palm tree in the background. He's looking relaxed. He's got his singlet on.
Yeah, that's what I said
Yeah.
just before I cut out. I'm like, Scotty's actually in Bali. He's in paradise. He's got the artificial palm tree.
Yeah. Well, I can if I turn, you can sort
Yeah,
of see.
for the YouTubers, yeah.
Oh wow, that looks awesome, man. So Scotty's showing us the pool. He's poolside at the moment.
Just
Nice
rub it in,
sunny
man.
weather. Nice and relaxed. I'm still up in Brizzy. So
Yeah.
I'm heading home tonight, back to Melbourne and back into my house, regular routine. So I'm looking forward to it. MG, how you doing?
Man, I'm just flying the flag down here in Melbourne, covering for you boys while you're all living it up.
But you're
Someone,
heading off
hmm
this weekend, right?
someone,
You're
someone's got to
heading
get
off.
it done. What's that? Yeah, I'm going to Sydney on Saturday.
What do you
A
got?
and B Nationals. Excited, man.
Awesome.
Last show of the season, and it's the venue there is awesome, man. In Sydney, I'll do some updates on my story on the weekend so everyone can see how good A and B Nats are. But really looking forward to it. It's going to be an awesome show. Flying up with Matty Papa. Matty Papa's going to be doing some judging as well, which is awesome. So I'll just be down there to help out, usher around, help Team Vic, and really just help anyone who needs help, man.
Yeah, awesome. Man,
Is it a 2 day show or 1 day?
One day.
And is there a pro show at night?
Yep.
Yeah, no.
amazing. I can't
You,
believe
you
the
got
season's come to an end. Like,
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
I think IFBB finishes up next weekend, WBFF finishes up, NBA's done, ICN's done, AMB is going to be done. It's all coming to an end.
I know. I'm still even after A and B this weekend. I'm pumped to see like the Nats of IFBB because
Yeah,
few of our friends there as well. Like obviously, we're looking to see what Matt's. Well, we've seen it, but everyone else will see what Matt's bringing.
Natty Orchard, classic physique. That we
Yeah,
put
and then
on
we
the
got
show.
obviously
And
Beck's pushing hard in Queensland as well.
Cameron, yeah.
Yeah, and then my mate Nathan Falk's on as well. He's a big boy
Oh,
from Melbourne. Yes. So still a little bit of comp around, but we're getting close, man. I'll tell you what, it feels like, you know what, when I left you boys, or when Scott and I left Brisbane, even though Scott went to Bali, so it's not the worst. But when I got home to Melbourne, it was like the post-holiday blues, right? It was like we literally had a weekend of like comps, bodybuilding, training, eating. Freaking, it was elite.
it was amazing. But
it was a good weekend.
I'm pumped for season A already. Like, as you boys know, you've probably already started lining everyone up for season A. Preps will, I've actually got some people starting prep very, very soon and then having a little bit of a die break over Christmas and then going again. And I've got some people that will be starting straight after New Year's. So it's season A is exciting. And we've got some good shows like NBA Nationals will be in Melbourne. There's going to be a fitness expo in Sydney, which they'll run their show. ICN in Victoria have some new venues for
Yeah.
all their season A shows. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
Really looking forward to it.
we got our A&B show this year will be April 23rd.
Oh, perfect.
The 23rd.
Right in, yeah, right in. So that'll be 2 weeks up. Because I think what happened this year with season A is Easter's kind of pushed everything back. Because I know Tony usually does like an April 9th, April 10th show.
Yeah.
Which is obviously falls on the weekend of Easter. So he's had to push back a week. So we've pushed back a week. Kind of all try and find a way to work together and make the season run optimally for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm actually putting that in my phone right now. April 23rd, you said?
Yeah, Sunday, not a Saturday, which is different for us.
Same venue.
Same venue, Kingston Arts Cinema.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
I'm going to have to get the calendar ready and put it all down now because all the dates are confirmed for pretty much all the feds. So start building people's plans out and locking in the specific weekends. It's awesome.
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But yes,
Exciting.
in the last podcast, we spoke a little bit about my prep and what I was going through at that point in time and the mind wanting to push, but the body not wanting to follow. And we're still up in the air whether I was going to compete at the NBA show on the weekend. And, with Scotty's guidance and assistance to try to get me to peak and get the body to cooperate, we found that on the Friday and on the Saturday, we made the call that the body just wasn't doing what it wanted to do. I looked great. I looked competitive. And even you said, Scotty, like things are looking really good. And it's really up to me whether I want to jump on stage. And I said to you, mate, if I'm not my best or any better than I was at Vix, I'm just not doing it. Because for me, the biggest goal was in Victoria to do the shows there, look my absolute best after 11-year hiatus from the sport, be there in front of my family and friends and enjoy myself. That was a massive box that was ticked and that goal was achieved. And then to come up to Queensland to do all the nationals was to be competitive and to be better and to be my absolute best. But the body just didn't want to do it, didn't want to go. And we made that call, and then it lined up perfectly because on my bestie was coming to see me anyways for my show on the weekend. So he still came. And on Saturday, I officially started day one of the reverse. And I was just telling MG, it was so funny. It's like we made that call on Friday in the afternoon, and I still kept dieting that day. I had all my food prepped, ready to go. I was still training. I still wanted to execute and finish that day off strong. And then when Saturday came around, it's like the body said, okay, now you can fucking rest. And I tried to sightsee with my bestie, and it was a struggle to walk. It was a real struggle to walk. Like, my mind's like, I want to get out and do things, and the body's just like, no, mate.
Yeah, man, you're done.
And what's so funny is because the other days I was training really hard. I felt really good, recovered, rested, felt amazing. As soon as that decision was made, the next day I woke up, I was like, body's like, yep, no, not happening. And what's funny is we even spoke about this, MG, is we've had clients that have just gotten sick straight after shows, straight away, just gotten sick. Body's like, yep, cool, you can take it easy now, and gotten sick. But I had that first day of reverse. My best mate was down, we went to the Gold Coast, had 3 square meals, nothing crazy. I wasn't hungry. And it's pretty much all I ate was just 3 meals, and that was it. And then next day, Sunday, everything was prepped and ready to go, and I just continued on with the calories and macros that were set. And everything's been good since then. So, you know,
and that's probably like like the fact that even that it just reinforces that the right decision was made. Your body had just literally said it's had enough. And sometimes that's what happens when you're in that dieting condition for so long. Like, you started prep so long ago, your body had basically just said, nah, we're done.
Yeah, and what I just said to MG before is, you know, obviously I've still been training pretty hard, but even I've been told to be a little bit conservative. And I'm actually getting some fluid retention in the ankles. And
bit of edema, okay.
Yeah, and I think the legs are just a bit tired. So I took a day off training today. And today I'm traveling back home. So I decided not to train today, but I'll be itching to train tomorrow when I get myself set.
It's always harder to pull back when, you know, the pressure of the show's off, food's up a little bit, you got a little bit more energy, you want to dispose of that energy, and your body's just like, nah, no fucking chance. So it's hard to pull back and not want to go in the gym and just fucking tear the roof off when you got all this energy. You've actually got to think like an athlete and say, okay, what's the right thing for me to do here? Well, I actually need to listen and rest. Yeah,
and what's funny is the last 2 mornings I've slept in an extra hour compared to the whole week. Yeah. Just for no reason, just gotten up an hour later.
The body's amazing, man. Like, what it can endure. Like, even similarly, like when I got through my prep, remember, like the week after prep, my knee, which had been an issue for 16 weeks of my prep, we got through it, said no more. Now I'm not going to let you walk properly anymore. So like, it managed to let me, like, I trained legs peak week, and then the week after peak week, when all my shows were done, my knee just went, nah, you're not even going to walk anymore.
It's crazy.
Do you find, because we actually haven't had this conversation, MT, would you say that your perceived energy levels are higher now that you're eating a bit more? Like, do you feel like you have a little bit more energy, pep in your step, or does it just feel no different?
Actually, I would say I feel a little bit less energy, even though I'm eating more food.
Perhaps more lethargic as a result of more carbohydrate consumption. Yeah.
You know what it is? I think it's just the mind not having to push as hard anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm super motivated though, and you know me, like, I'm motivated by improvement and progression. So the fact that now we're in reverse, and I'm just looking at myself like, I cannot wait to start growing. Like, I cannot wait. So I'm really motivated to get it all done. But I have been feeling lethargic recently, even though food is up, and I'm up 2 kg at the moment.
Yeah, which is good. It's a nice way to come out. Like, you know, we've all seen people go the other way and put a shitload on in a very short amount of time. Yeah. And like, obviously the phase that you were in being recovery was to try and recover some of that down regulation, but it doesn't mean you have to put on a shitload of weight really fast either, right? So, and how much better you're going to feel coming out 2-3 kilos heavier over 2 weeks instead of 7 or 8. Yeah. And even from your mental state as well.
Yeah, and of that too, like you've still, like we actually said a bit more than that you got to obviously gain over the next few days.
Yeah, and what's funny is weight kind of came up quick and then it's come back down again, as you would
Yeah.
expect. Just having those untracked meals, and I had a little bit of digestive issues the next couple of days after that, even though, I went for a gluten-free vegetarian options and something really, and, gluten-free breads and stuff. I still tried to be really conservative and lactose-free milks because I had my first latte for the first time in God knows how long. But yeah, still a little bit of digestive issues, which is as to be expected. But I've just gone back to
golden nectar.
food. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's good, man.
But yeah, we're good to go. So we actually got some questions about you, Scotty, about how everything's going in Bali and how you're managing your food.
Yeah, it's a good
Are
one.
you still doing a mini cut, and how you're managing your training?
Yeah, so food-wise, it's probably actually not going as well as I would have liked. Not in the sense that most people might think I've been overindulging, but actually probably the opposite. So yes, I technically am still in this pre-prep mini cut phase, but I actually put something up on my timeline. I was maybe 5 or 6 days ago, maybe even a week ago, just saying that how much of a drop that I had like within that first initial phase where, yeah, and a lot of people are like, how did you lose that much body fat? But I think a lot of people realize when you're eating, my off-season food was around about 5,000 calories in that 4,800 to 5,200 range. I pulled it way back because I wanted to try and get this done relatively quick. A lot of that, I think my intakes, they were somewhere around the 33 or 3,400 mark. But when you look at how much less food that is, so firstly, you're going to see a massive drop in glycogen, a massive drop in food volume, and in water clearing out. There was probably 3 kilos just in that alone anyway. But I actually weighed in this morning because we haven't had scales, other than at the gym when we were staying at the Morrell in Nusa Dua. And I was weighing in after training there, and I was around about 99.1, 99.2. But this morning, fasted, I was 96.6, which is a little bit too low for where I would want to be. And I think it's partly because I actually find when we're here, especially with the kids, we only really eat 3 meals a day, whereas back home I'll put in 5, sometimes 6 meals a day. So just the meal frequency, perhaps the food volume, but it was a bit of a reminder that perhaps I need to just be mindful. Like yesterday we went for lunch and I had a big chicken salad, whereas that just obviously wasn't going to be enough. In my head, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm dieting. There's probably 700 or 800 calories here, but it just turns out that it wasn't. So I'll just be a bit more mindful and probably just try and eat a little bit more while I'm here because I don't want to drop that fast. But otherwise, it's going good. Training wise,
now.
Yeah, we're in Seminyak now. So we're staying at Nusa Dua before at the Morrell, and they actually have probably one of the best gyms, in-house gyms in Bali. So it's an incredible resort. They have everything, hammer strength, life fitness. So I pretty much trained every day there, knowing that I was probably going to take the first 3 or 4 days here to just recovery. This is meant to be a deload anyway. And then one of my good mates is coming over here on Friday or Saturday, I think. So I'll probably get 2 or 3 sessions in later in the week with him, either at we'll either go to Body Factory or the Soham Centre in Seminyak. And so that'll pretty much be it. Last week was just training like normal. And then, like I said, I'll use these for next few days to just relax, a bit of family time. I won't bother about training. And then I'll get a few sessions in later in the week to also make it a bit easier to integrate back into normal life. We fly home next Tuesday. So at least that way I'll have had a few days of training. I obviously won't train the day that we leave. And then that way when I get back, it'll just be full steam ahead, ready to go again. But it's so easy, even if you're dieting over here, everything here in terms of like if you're in Seminyak, there's so many places, they've got all the calories, it's got the macro breakdowns, you can track if you want to track. And the food isn't inherently like I mean, you can get greasy, shitty food wherever you go, but it's pretty clean. I tend to eat the same stuff. It's pretty much just chicken and rice. Even when we're at the Morrell, they have like a buffet style, but you can make, because I'm gluten-free, they make everything fresh for you. So each night I was having like a big bowl of nasi goreng, a side of vegetables, and then extra chicken breast on the side. And they're looking at me like, do you want anything else? Like, do you want some, some fried toast or whatever? Or like, yeah, all these other bits and pieces. And I'm like, no, I'm good. Let's have that with the soda water. So I'm pretty simplistic. Even when I am away, I tend to eat the same sort of stuff because I like what I like. So
yeah,
a bit bland, bit plain Jane, but that's all right.
Smashing the mahi.
I actually ate a lot of that in Nusa Dua. So some nights I would switch up the chicken just for fish. So I'd have a heap of fish, or I'd have steak or chicken. But yeah, I haven't had any here because last night we went to a steak restaurant here, but I had a nice eye fillet and some veggies and potatoes. So even then, it's good, man. I'm sure you guys would be very similar. I mean, even if I wasn't celiac, I wouldn't be eating burgers and shit like that because it just doesn't really agree with me.
Yeah. No, I think the only thing that like is desirable to me if I'm away is like just get the craving for a pizza, but like a good pizza, not like
Yeah.
that's so like I think pizza. Me and I did a few pizzas in Bali, but like do you hit up Sea Circus there?
I've been before, but we don't normally go there. Nah, we've actually penciled in. I think we had dinner at the Plantation Grill last night. Tonight we've got barbacoa.
Yeah, that's cool. Check out Sea
so
Circus just for lunch, just because like it's heaps of stuff that's like bodybuilder friendly, man.
Okay, I'll have to have a look at that. Yeah, we normally go to Sisterfields in
Yeah, it's not. It's around the corner. Around the corner.
Okay. Yeah.
Better.
I'll check it out for sure.
Awesome, man. So good to hear that you're having a great time over there. You deserve it, man. You had a massive season and a massive year, so enjoy some family.
Appreciate it, man. No, it's good.
Definitely enjoy some family time. We had a couple of people ask, and also just people comment to me in general. They're like, "Are you guys going to continue the podcast in the off season?" And I'm like, "Of course! Like we're doing this all the way through. We're not stopping. It wasn't just something just for comp prep to get people through or to give people advice through comp prep. We're definitely continuing the podcast all the way through, and we're going to organise a catch up. We're definitely going to put it out there to organise a catch up. We'll hit a big gym somewhere. We'll get everyone to come down, and it'll be really good to meet everyone.
Yeah. And I think the content will just evolve with the time of the year it is, right? So, like, obviously, we did a lot of prep-related topics and questions, and we think that maybe the questions will start to be a little more off-season related, growing, food relationship orientated. Like, there's just a ton of topics that we're here to cover, and we also are aware that we're due for our next guest, so stay tuned for that. That's not too far away.
Yeah, on that, so, coming into different questions now post-comp, people looking at new goals, maybe new federations, maybe leveling up their physique and changing their physique. So I actually got two questions about being a natural athlete, doing natural federations, ICN, NBA, so on and so forth, and wanting to move into IFBB, WBFF, that potentially have people that aren't natural. Do they stand a chance? And, how long of an off-season do they kind of need? So, maybe you want to tackle this?
Yeah, I would start by saying potentially against people who are not natural. I want to say 100% against people who are not natural, not potentially, definitely against enhanced athletes. And again, it's like so athlete dependent. Like, there's certain physiques that are competing in, the natural federations that we compete in that could stand on an IFBB stage and do really, really well, right? Like if we just use like Beck, pretty much took out most of the divisions in Victoria. So can it be done? 100%. But I think depending on the type of category that you're doing, it's going to become harder and harder to become competitive unless you are at the top of the ranks in the natural feds, or maybe even a pro in the natural feds to step on an enhanced stage. For example, an ICN physique pro stepping on and doing IFBB men's physique, right? That might be a better correlation than say just an amateur stepping on the IFBB stage. But as soon as you start to step up into your classics, your bodybuildings, just the sheer size of some of these guys, and unless you've been to an IFBB show or you are friends with a competitor who competes within these divisions, you cannot understand the difference in size when guys stand next to each other, right? It can be chalk and cheese at times. So can someone do well? I think we've actually answered this. Like someone can do well if they are an absolute freak, hard worker, been in the game a long time, a lot of dense, mature muscle. Like if I could use Scott as an example, right? Scott could step on the IFBB stage, do physique, and do well. But Scott's got years and years and years of training, and he's at the top level of natural physique competition in the country. So he could, but he's just one example. For most people, it would take a lot of time to get there. And could you do it in one off season? I don't think you could. No, I think it would take multiple grow seasons. If you look at the rate at which we're putting on muscle tissue, and like if I use myself as an example, I'm pushing so hard at the moment food-wise. I'm punishing a reasonable amount of food to just try and grow by like a couple of 100 grams per week. For me to get my ceiling in off-season weight is going to take me the best part of 18 months. And that's pretty much how long I'm going to be growing for to get there. So it's just going to take far more time than you think it's going to take to get the size required to be competitive on that stage.
Yeah, look, I think it's probably this is probably a female asking this question. So I want to say that if you're a female going into a bikini division within WBFF or IFBB, it's probably more likely that you'll be competitive than if you were a male going into a male division, or if you're a female going into more of a muscular division like a figure or fitness or whatever that may be. So I think if you're looking at IFBB bikini or WBFF bikini, yes, it's definitely doable. I would always say is take an honest assessment of your current physique or your most recent stage physique and look at people that are competitive in IFBB bikini, WBFF bikini, and see how far you've got to go. And see and then get honest feedback from a coach or us, someone that maybe can help you, is how long do you think it's going to take? What muscle groups I need to build up? Do I have the shape that they're looking for? Because IFBB is looking for a very, very specific shape and structure, and there's certain people that will be competitive just because of their genetic structure and shape, and certain people that won't. And that's the same with WBFF. So do I even have the body type to suit a certain division? And how far away is my current physique from being competitive in that division? And as we said, is we've got people that are more newbies, but they've been training for years, or they genetically have a great physique or great muscularity, and they could be competitive right now. And you've got other people that this could be more of a 4 to 5, 6 year end goal, where they've got to go through multiple growth phases to bring their physique to a competitive level. So I think you need to take an honest assessment and see how long it's going to take for you to get there, get feedback from a coach or even from a judge, whatever that may be. And I think it's more likely that if you're a female and going into a bikini division, you're more likely to be able to do it naturally and still be competitive. Now, just a side note is both of those federations, IFBB and WBFF, the stage presence and posing is different, and it requires a lot of practice, and it can also require a certain type of person or personality to really, let's say, be more of a natural in one of those federations. So you're going to make an honest assessment too there of how much of it do I need to go, or how much do I need to practice to actually pull off my stage presence and be competitive in those federations, because it's a very, very big judging criteria in those two federations. Yep. So definitely something to look into too and think about too. But it can definitely be done. Everything's always doable, but it's just about taking an honest assessment of where you're at and how long it's going to take to get to where you need to be.
And you might have done like a female fitness division stepping into IFBB bikini. So like you might already have the muscularity for a natural fitness division, but if you went into that federation, you may drop down a level, go say the muscularity of bikini because it's more suitable. So it just depends where you're at as well.
Yeah. And remember, they've got wellness too in IFBB now. And what we're finding is that they're trying to make a bigger gap between those two divisions. So even IFBB bikini has changed over the recent years. It's more of a smaller look compared to what it used to be, because they're trying to make that separation between wellness and bikini. So also assess your physique and make sure you're looking at current winners and people that are currently competitive, to understand where you need to go and how far you need to get there and what your body type really suits. Because if you're very lower body dominant and very lower body muscular, it may throw you out of the IFBB bikini now in this state of the environment that they're in at the moment. So you've got to make sure you're up to date with what they're looking for from a judging perspective too. Anything to add there, Scotty?
Nope, you guys nailed it.
Nailed it. All right, we're going to move on to something that I know you really want to talk about. Deadlifts and back squats. Will they make your waist thick? And we're probably most likely talking about this discussion coming up because of female bikini competitors.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us.
Well, the short answer is no. So I think just because there are some people on social media who like to perhaps make a massive claim there. They saw on an EMG that you get more abdominal exercise, you get more abdominal or oblique activation on a squat or a deadlift than you would say with doing an abdominal crunch. But it just doesn't work like that. And again, if you look for something within certain data, somewhere along the line, you'll always be able to find bits and pieces of it. But majority of the EMG data that I have seen, you know, guys like Schoenfeld and Brett Contreras, like they've even put stuff on and actually showed in terms of EMG data that they've done in their labs, which just completely just throws what these other people are saying out the window. So obviously your abdominals and your obliques co-contract like your erectors whenever you're performing a squat or a deadlift, because they have to engage so that you can maintain thoracic extension and not obviously bend over. So by thoracic extension, I mean you can stay in an upright position and still be able to perform the movement. So it's preventing you from spinal flexion. But I would argue that exercises like a chin-up, shoulder press, a floor press, any of those other movements are also going to have the exact same, if not sometimes even perhaps more, engagement of those muscles than what a squat or a deadlift will. So yes, and again, this all starts because when you're squatting or deadlifting, you're creating intra-abdominal pressure. So, you know, you're breathing into your diaphragm, so it inflates, it pushes pressure, and creates pressure through your TVA, and it does obviously mildly stretch your rec abdomen and your obliques. But again, you're doing that with all these other movements and exercises that involve greater range of motion and that actually involve flexion and extension of the spine. So think an abdominal crunch with a cable or resistance, that is going to offer more activation through those specific regions than what an isometric contraction. So an isometric contraction means that the muscles are being engaged, but there's no actual movement through a specific range. So for example, think if you're doing a plank, that's an isometric contraction. If I'm doing a sit-up, obviously that involves flexion extension of the spine. So when we're squatting or we're deadlifting, yes, our core is engaging isometrically, but not at a rate that is going to supersede something like an abdominal crunch or even potentially a plank or a weighted plank for that matter. So to summarize, no, it's not going to make your waist blocky. A lot of the time, people that say, oh, they've got a blocky waist, they're referring to the IFBB bodybuilders. So you're talking about the guys that are 300 pounds in their off season and they do have quite a lot of distension through their midsection. But those athletes and even some of the perhaps IFBB or enhanced female competitors, they're blasting gear. So they're getting assistance from pharmacology to help obviously take that muscle group to an extreme. So just like their abdominals may perhaps grow a little bit more, but their glutes and their arms and their shoulders and their quads may also grow more than what yours will as well. So if you're a natural bikini athlete and someone's telling you not to deadlift or to squat, I would ask why and ask them to show you proof. And even then I wouldn't even ask, because I just think it's just not that sensible. It doesn't really apply to you if you're a natural athlete. Every single one of the females on my roster squat and deadlift. Myself as a male physique athlete, all of my guys all squat and deadlift. One of the comments that I actually get personally when I compete is, your waist looks so tiny. I squat heavy and I deadlift heavy and I hip thrust heavy and I don't have any issues with that whatsoever, because again, there's not a whole lot of carryover in terms of muscular growth through those specific exercises. If you want to make your abs blockier, then I would say train them through specific ranges. So perform oblique crunches, perform abdominal crunches, but you definitely don't need to worry about squatting or deadlifting.
You know what I think it is too? I think it's context. There's no context when comments like that are made. Like obviously those people that are saying those things online are just looking for a little bit of hype.
It's clickbait.
Definitely, but there's no context, right? So put it this way. Everyone needs to have some kind of squat variation and deadlift variation in their program. And the people that are saying those things, that deadlifts and squats make your waist thick, they use squats and deadlift variations in their programming. So their clients are all doing them. But it's about context, right? So let's just say, for instance, let's just say that heavy squats and deadlifts does make your waist thick. Let's just say it does, right? Over time, maybe it does. The thing is that they give you no context when they're saying that, because no bodybuilder does that. No bodybuilder does powerlifting style squats and deadlift and program in that way, where they're constantly lifting heavy, low rep, and over years and years and years, and it's always in their program to do heavy squats and deadlifts. All the bodybuilders, all those female athletes, all those bikini athletes, they're doing some kind of single leg deadlift, some kind of deadlift that's with dumbbells, some kind of stiff leg deadlift, some kind of Romanian deadlift, some kind of fancy deadlift with a cable, some kind of squat that's with the
Smith machine or
some kind of angle between their legs. They're using a hack machine. They're using a Smith machine. They're doing some kind of other, high rep squat. They're doing single leg versions. None of them are doing a powerlifting version of a squat. None of them, right? And even if they were, because they wanted to get their 1RM deadlift up or their squat deadlift up, they're doing it for 1 8-week program a year, right? So they're not training like a powerlifter. They're not training like a CrossFit athlete, which is where most people would say is these are the ones that have thick waists and they do squats and deadlifts, therefore squats and deadlifts are no good. Even if it was true, no bodybuilder trains like that. No bodybuilder program has programs like that. And even if they did train or have programs like that, it's for a very, very short period of time because they want to do something different and they have a goal of getting their 1RM up. So always think about the context when someone makes a claim or a clickbait trigger like squats and deadlifts make your waist thick. It's all about context.
That's it. It's like when the game changers came out and everyone's like, man, did you see the game changers? It's like everyone should go vegan. Now, did you see the data that they had in that game changers documentary? It's like, yeah, but when you pick out 3 pieces of data and go really, really hard at those 3 pieces, hell yeah, you can make it convincing. I mean, just with the people that we coach collectively, us 3 on screen, and how many of them get to stage with teeny tiny waists, all of our clients squat and deadlift. So is our data not relevant? I think you're just like a lot of the time picking and choosing. I can't remember who debated this once, but I heard them say like, if that's your argument, then you best be taking out every exercise that requires you to brace. So what does that leave you in your programming? Well, not a fucking hell of a lot. So there's
and that's what I mean. There's if you're going to remove squats and deadlifts because you're worried it's going to make your waist blocky, then you should take out pretty much every single compound movement that requires you to have stability of the spine.
That's it.
which really doesn't leave you a whole lot. You might as well just go and do Pilates.
What's so interesting is we talk about men's physique for a second. Is we really want our abs developed so we can see them, right? So they're aesthetically pleasing. So men's physique athletes directly train their abs. And some of them have the smallest waists ever. Because aesthetically, for stage, they need to have a small waist, but they train the shit out of their abs. So
and they squat and they deadlift.
But besides the point is they're training their abs directly and they still don't have a thick waist. And now we're trying to say that just general bracing could cause a thick waist.
And it's also about creating an illusion. So, for example, if you get someone to stand straight in front of you in a frontal plane position and you look at their midsection versus if you get them to go through a quarter turn, square their body one way and rotate, you can create a look that makes your waist look super tiny. And in terms of, say, like the men's physique guys, they also do that by having ridiculously large lats. So you're big up here, which creates the illusion that everything below that is super small. In females, it's the same thing where they're broad through their arms and their shoulders, and they've got these monster glutes. So you're big up here and you're big down there. So it makes whatever's in the middle appear really, really small. So, yeah, I think you kind of just have to sometimes sit back and just think logically. And again, bear in mind that, like I said, if you look for something somewhere along the lines, if you go looking on the internet to say that perhaps if you eat burgers, you can get cancer, I'm sure somewhere along the line there's someone that's had cancer that used to eat a lot of hamburgers. but that doesn't necessarily mean that eating hamburgers is going to give you fucking cancer. So you just have to, again, just take a step back sometimes. And sometimes that's what I do. If I'll ever read something, it could be a research paper. And that's why you also have to assess what you're reading and sometimes even go through the data and see how was it done, how is it measured, what was the protocol like? Because unless it's a meta-analysis on something, so meta-analysis is like an analysis of a ton of analyses, then which I haven't seen anything along that lines thus far, then I think you just sort of perhaps need to think sometimes it can just be an outlier.
Yeah,
definitely.
And it's just like for a lot of the people putting this stuff out, like Trimboli said, they're using variants of it, but it's their marketability tool, right? It's what they're selling their product on. It's like, like similarly, we've all heard this one, like, oh, none of my athletes will do any cardio, but they have 20,000 steps in their plan, right? But same thing, right? It's like, no cardio if you work with me, but you got to do 20,000 steps. You ain't going to get 20,000 steps without doing some form of formal movement, a walk. You can class it as whatever you want. So sometimes it's just about reading between the lines a little bit more.
100%.
Yep.
Okay, I think we've done that one to death. Another one for training is mind-muscle connection. Tips to help with mind-muscle connection, and is it really important?
One of the things I always found, man, is the bigger you get, the more muscle you build, the better your mind-muscle connection gets, right? When there's more of it to connect with. So I find like the longer someone trains, the better they get, and that's obviously no surprise. And I think the best tip that you can give is like work with the coach as early as you can. If you're an athlete who's self-coaching or hasn't worked with a coach before, even just checking in with a coach to get an assessment of your form and technique, because we can go through periods of time and just develop bad habits in exercise, and it can happen to the best of us. And then all of a sudden you can start to trigger little things like connective tissue issues and tendinopathy. And that's happened to me in the past where, when I was seated rowing 70 kilos, my mind muscle connection was beautiful. My form was great and I had no elbow flares. But when I started to bump up to 77, 83, 89, all of a sudden I'm trying to move that weight a little bit harder. My form gets a little bit shitter. My mind muscle connection drops and bang, what happens? Spike in volume, tendinopathy back. So it is important. I would say don't push things too fast, too quickly. Get someone to check your form regularly. Get a coach to assess you. Even a lot of us, we have clients who are just online. We never get to see them. The benefit of having them potentially in the gym even once a month versus not at all can go a long way to building your mind-muscle connection.
I think if you're a newbie, you should probably expect to have very, very bad mind-muscle connection.
Yeah.
Like, so many newbies that I've trained in the past, perfect form, I don't feel it. I can't feel it in my quads. I can't feel it in my back. And I'd be like, it's okay. It just takes time. You're doing the movement correctly. I can see the form is great. It's just going to take time for that movement to translate into, oh my God, I feel it. Now, look, if it's a direct bicep curl or you're on the leg curl machine or doing a leg extension, you're probably going to feel it in the target muscle because it's so isolated. But, a typical one is lat pull down or some kind of rowing movement or even some kind of squat. You're like, I just don't feel it. And their form will be textbook. And it's just going to take time. And then, as MG said, then you may get your mind muscle connection, you may feel it in the muscle, but then as you progress in the weight and the reps, you may lose it because you're progressing too fast and too hard and you're trying to move the weight from A to B and more worrying about training the exercise than training the muscle.
Yeah, well, targeting the number rather than the connection.
So I think you get to a point where once you've learned how to get to A to B and do the correct form, and then you're progressing in the movement, and then all of a sudden you can start to feel it in the muscle that you're training, and then you get stronger, make sure you maintain that connection. Because then we can get to a point where we're progressing so fast and so hard and we're looking to push numbers and we forget that we're trying to actually, we should be training a muscle, not training the squat or training the lat pull down. We're training the back or the quads.
Yeah.
So I think it's super important. And then we start to see some really, let's call them fancy movements where we're trying to hit a certain angle or a certain region of the muscle. That may even take more time. It's almost like starting like a newbie again. At the moment, lower lats is like the new thing, to like hit your lower lats and do some kind of single arm, underhand grip, chest supported cable thing. And yeah, you're not going to feel the lower lats when you first start that movement. Like, it's going to take you time. So same thing is, get the form right first, get someone to check the form, then over time, understand where you're supposed to feel it, then you'll start to feel it, and make sure you can maintain that feeling even once you start progressing that movement.
Yeah, something I think can be really advantageous as well, and that's typically what I give anyone that's new to the game straight off, is isotonic work, so a lot of tempo work. And the advantage of that is, firstly, you need to go lighter because obviously the duration of the set takes longer, but going slower and taking your time, especially for that eccentric range, it teaches you control, teaches you correct lifting mechanics, but you'll create so much more time under tension, which over time means that you'll accrue more cellular swelling, so more of a pump, which will actually allow you to get a better muscle-mind connection. So I think there's so much hype, especially in perhaps the younger generation, starting out, how much they can lift. How much you lift, is it important? It is important, but how you lift that actual load is more important. So the way that you're lifting and executing a movement matters more than how much you're lifting. So sometimes you'll have guys that are, they're claiming that they're doing a 450 leg press, and you have a look and it's like a quarter range. And then you'll prescribe, say, I want you to do sets of 12 to 15 with a 3-second negative with 200 kilos. And I want you to video it from a sagittal view so I can actually see exactly where your range is. And it's like, oh my God, my legs have never been like that in my whole entire life. So sometimes, it's not a weightlifting competition. We're not powerlifters. The goal is to gain as much size as we can and to put on as much muscle. So if creating a better mind-muscle connection, which it does, it is going to allow you to do that. An easy and simple way to do that sometimes is just pull back on the load and then perform some tempo-based work. So actually count your reps. So if it's a lat pull down, if it's a 3-second negative on the way back up and you're doing 10 to 12 reps, your set's going to take you close to a minute. And I can guarantee you'll get more out of that and you'll get more activation out of that than you will if you just pump out 12 momentum heavy reps up and down like that, or trying to perform the Kasam one arm iliac pull down. Those type of movements, yeah, they are good if they can be executed correctly, but 95% of people can't do that, and they're not at a level where they can do that. And a lot of times you need to be there in person to really, solidify how that movement's executed. So sometimes rather than giving someone that, you're better off just giving them something a little bit more basic where they're going to be able to execute it correctly and get more out of it rather than trying to overcomplicate it. Like, the basics work. You look back at guys like Dorian Yates and Arnold, they weren't doing any of those sorts of things, Ronnie Coleman, years and years and years ago, and they were still able to build incredible physiques. The basics work. I think sometimes we just overcomplicate things.
Yeah, I think you made some really good points. Sometimes you need to include some, let's call it intensity techniques, where it's like pause contractions, negatives, pulses, and things like that, going lighter but increasing the rep range, tempo work. I think sometimes we need to just change it to reconnect with the muscle and actually feel what it feels like to feel it in the muscle, right? And not just feel tension, where it's like, I'm getting stronger. I can really feel it in my lats when I lat pull down because the weight is so heavy. Sometimes it's like, okay, how about you try a pause at the bottom? How about you try a slow tempo? How about you try some pulses? How about you try something else? Also, too, is sometimes people get stuck on the variation. Be like, well, 90% of people do this variation, therefore that's what the variation I should be doing. Yeah. Sometimes you might be that 10% where that variation just doesn't work for you, just based on your And I think a really common one that I see with people is hip thrusting. So I've had so many clients who are like, I just don't feel it in my glutes. I just don't feel it in my glutes. And they'll be super strong. I'm like, cool, okay, go a bit wider, don't feel it. Go a bit narrower, don't feel it. Point the toes out, don't feel it. Let's add a band. Okay, now I feel it. So sometimes you need to modify the variation, the grip, the stance, add a band, whatever that may be, and experiment to see if you need to change the variation so that you can feel it in the muscle and have a better mind-muscle connection. Because just because someone says that you have to stand in this stance on a squat or have this kind of looking hip thrust doesn't mean that it's going to work for 100% of the people. Have you found the same, MG? What do you think?
Yeah, man. I absolutely agree 100%. And that's where it like comes back to my point earlier. It's like sometimes the best thing you can do is just have someone there to bounce off and assess for you, rather than just trying to work it all out yourself. Because there's certain movements that certain people are going to pull off beautifully because structurally they're built different. You know, limb lengths, all types of stuff are gonna make a difference. So yeah, there is no one size fits all. Get a coach, bounce it off someone, and then you can progress so much faster just having someone in your corner who can assess your movement efficiency.
100%. Now, you spoke about coaches, and we've got a coaching question. And this is actually pretty common. I've seen this a lot, and I've spoken to a lot of people about this, is how to break up with your coach when your coach is your friend. This person said, I'd love to work with one of you guys for my next comp, but I feel like a dog ditching my coach who is a friend and just prep me for my first show. What do I do? Have you ever come across this, MG, where someone's like, I want to go with you, but it's my friend, my coach is my friend.
I have.
I feel really bad.
Look, I have. And in that instance, because the question was directed at me specifically, the answer that I gave was like, that's something that you have to work out and deal with, because I don't want to be seen to be saying, this is exactly what you say. Go to that coach and say exactly this. And then they're like, well, this is what MG told me to tell you. So in that instance, my answer was just, this is probably something that you have to work out for yourself. But look, at the end of the day, if you feel like there's an opportunity for better progression, as coaches, all three of us can sit here on screen and 100% say that we've had athletes who have left us, who we thought would not leave us, because, you've done everything right. And I've seen people, MT take people all the way through to win overalls, and 2 seasons pass and they're not there. I'm like, man, you did everything right. What happened? So we don't take it personally anymore. If I relate it back to us, these things happen. People change coaches all the time, and you know what? We also understand that human nature. You do want to experience new things. Having said that, if you're with that coach and that coach has continually gotten you your best physique year after year, the process has been good, safe, efficient, you've had a good working relationship, then you do need to think about whether you are genuinely going to gain anything from changing coaches. So you need to look at the pros and cons. If there's methodology within your coach's practice that you are questioning and you are questioning regularly, that's a different story. And maybe that there are better avenues out there. But I just don't want athletes to always think about that, the jump ship train where, I didn't win my pro card this season. Maybe a new coach will fix that. Well, it's not necessarily always the outcome, right? Maybe you just need a little bit more time in a building phase to improve your physique and come back next time to do a little bit better than you did last time. So I would just say, look at your progression with that coach. Are you getting better and better every time you prep? Does the methodology back up what we talk about here all the time? Then maybe it might be a personality thing. And at the end of the day, if you're just not clicking personalities, but you're saying this person's your best friend, so your personality is definitely gel. So they would be the metrics that I would assess.
Yeah, from a competitor standpoint, sometimes you need to think, is the grass going to be greener on the other side? And we've always had clients that thought so, and then come back to us. There's a lot. So think about it from that perspective too, is the grass really going to be green on the other side? And as you said, MG, if everything's going well and you're progressing and you've got a good relationship, then give that coach the opportunity to keep coaching you and to get you to the point of where you need to be. And maybe then after you think you've given them enough time, then assess whether you want to move on.
For sure.
But I'll tell you from a coach's perspective, and us three have all spoken about this, and I think this comes with experience and also having a good business and being a good coach, is there's so many clients out there. You lose one client, you gain 4 more. Like we've all spoken about this. The season has ended. How many inquiries have we gotten? How many more people have we signed on? A handful. All of us have, right? Already. And it's only been a week post the major shows, right? So as a coach, don't worry about losing a client from a business perspective, because there's so many clients out there and you'll replace that spot easily. The next thing is no coach wants to coach someone that doesn't want to be coached anymore. So if there's any inkling of a client that really is over being coached, let them go. Because the last thing I want is to be coaching someone that doesn't want to be coached. So as soon as someone says to me, I want to take a break, I'm like, perfect. When do you want it? Right now? We can start right now. You can have your break right now. Because the last thing I want to do is to continue to coach them when I know they don't want to be coached. I want to go on a break. So I always, whenever someone does want to take a break or put things on hold for, so going on a holiday for personal reasons, financial reasons, or their goal is so far ahead that they don't really need to be coached right now, I want to set them up for success without me. And also I want to let them go as soon as possible because I want to replace them, obviously, but I also only want to coach people that want to be coached. So as a coach, if that coach that is your friend, tell them, be honest with them, because I'm sure they don't want to coach you if you don't want to be coached by them. I'm pretty sure that's the way they're going to feel. If they're an experienced coach and they understand that from a business perspective, there's plenty of clients out there. So in the end, I'd just be honest with that person. And if you do come to the decision that you do want a new coach and you do want to try something different and you've given them the opportunity and they're not giving you the physique and the outcomes that you want, then just have an honest conversation with them. And if they're professional, they will take it on board. They might even ask you for some feedback so that they can improve their coaching. And if they're professional, they'll let you go and they'll have no dramas with replacing you.
Yeah. And the other part is like, are they your best friend because you've become best friends through the process, or were you best friends before them coaching you? Because I think that also makes a difference, right? But in the same token, if you were best friends before you started coaching, whether you coach them or not wasn't the reason you became friends, and it doesn't need to be the reason you stay friends either. And from the other point of view, if you became best friends through the coaching process, again, you weren't their best friend before that. And again, it's not going to, one person's probably not going to ruin their livelihood in terms of a business financial aspect. So just have a good, honest conversation.
Yeah. I think a little thing that I've kind of learnt too is sometimes you want to see a client go to another coach to then validate your coaching.
Yeah.
Because if they go to and this has happened a lot, and actually I've seen in the recent season, is old clients of mine go to a coach that is more popular, has amazing clients because they're great at their marketing, or they just get clients that are already good and at that top level. They go to them and they don't look any better or they look worse. It makes me validate my coach and be like, okay, it must be all right. Like if I've transformed them to look the absolute best and they've gone to someone else and they haven't got the same result, then I'm like, okay, well, at least I know I'm doing all right then. Yeah. Even though we've all got the success to know that we're doing all right, but it's always good as a coach to see people go to other coaches, and then
there's no one more popular than Michael Trimboli, but
this is true.
It's true, man. This is true.
But yeah, I think you've probably all experienced that.
For sure, man.
For sure.
Yeah, and sometimes as well, I think if you were eyeing off to go with like some IFBB person that's an IFBB pro or whatever, and they had someone go to the Olympia. Sometimes people that take on heaps and heaps and heaps of clients perhaps are not going to service you in the same personalized manner as, say, a Michael Trimboli, who, if you message him in the morning after your check-in and you have a question, or that you message him 3 days later, he's going to respond to you because he's invested in your process. Versus if it's someone else who sees you as $95 or $100 a week as a direct debit, it's not exactly the same. And unfortunately, there are some people like that. It's like any industry where it can be very transactional. And it's here's your macros, here's your program, send your check-ins next week. And essentially, I'll speak to you once a week and that's it. Versus, I know you boys are the same. We all have correspondence with our athletes in prep. Most of the time, it's every second day as you get closer, pretty much every day. And again, that's part of being invested and caring about it. And that's why it goes back to what you were saying before, where you don't want to waste all your time and energy investing in someone if they're not really, taking your time and your energy and putting it to good use. If you're having to chase someone up to check in and to give you this and to give you that, it's kind of like, well, I'll just give you a spot to someone else because there's someone else who really wants to get going and wants to work hard. So I think there's that as well. So sometimes just because someone has a bigger name and they may have a huge roster, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that same attention to detail and that love and that care, which, you know, you may get from someone who, even if it's not an MT or an MG, they might be someone who's smaller starting out. Sometimes that can also be good too, because they might only have 10 clients on their roster, but you're one of their 10 versus someone who might have 50 or 60 or 100, and guarantee the person who has 10 is going to give you more time and more care, because obviously they're just as invested in the process as you are, because they want you to do well, because that's what's going to help grow their brand and grow their roster to 20 and 30 and 40 and so on.
Yeah, 100%. All right, I want to end on a more of a personal note. There was a question about what we think are weak points in our own physique. Scotty, maybe you start, because you just come off the back of an off season and you're going to start your prep kind of soonish. What are your weak points, and what did you really concentrate on, and what did you really want to bring up for your next show?
Jeez, how long a bit of a paper have you got, man? I'm probably.
We'll say everything.
Can I honestly tell you, as soon as I step off stage, and this is true every show that I've done, whenever I'm flying back on the plane, I literally will have pen and paper, and I'll start performing like a SWOT analysis. So strengths, weaknesses, asymmetries, and a timeline to bring what I need to do up or to bring it to fruition. So one of the areas was definitely because I'm taller, I'm 6'2". I've got longer legs, calves, an area which I'm yet to meet too many people, unless you're Warren Sirac, who's blessed with absolute volleyball calves, sure. Which is one of those things. So that was definitely an area that I've invested a lot of time, the way I'm training them, the volume frequency. So calves was definitely an area. And then, to be honest, it was pretty much just adding more density to again, because I'm taller, to my arms, to my shoulders, and more width to my back. Obviously, competing as a physique pro, there are areas where you need to have, I guess, more shape and more size. So that was definitely a point. I felt, and I still feel like my chest is probably, I'm more blessed genetically to have, good tissue to that area, and it responds pretty well. But definitely adding more width, more through my calves. And I put a bit more work into my legs than previous years, mainly because I wasn't sure if I was maybe going to jump in classic physique this season. But to be honest, after just seeing the variance in physiques over the last few shows, I've just probably decided it's probably not for me, mainly because it's just too hard to know the look. I feel like it hasn't really been solidified yet, so I've kind of drawn a line through that. But calves, adding more width to my lats, and then obviously a bit more attention to my arms.
How about you, MG?
Well, I'm the same, man. I feel like I could write a whole list, but I suppose that's what makes us love the sport, right? Is like we're satisfied never being satisfied. I think I've gotten a lot better at this because, since handing the reins over to Scott and kind of letting him do the objective reflection of where I'm at. We looked after my last show, and like the big one for me is obviously chest. It's just genetically I always struggle to put tissue on my chest, and we've prioritized that. Just in each training block, we're sort of putting a little bit of extra volume through. Obviously, being 6'3", calves are a big one for me. But yeah, just overall thickness to the quads, and just trying to get a little bit wider through the backs. With the divisions that I do, is going to be fruitful for me for sure. So, but chest would be my biggest one by far, man. It's always been a weak point for me.
Yeah, for me, you're going to say full body, want to bring everything up. But I think the most I need to bring up for myself is definitely arms and shoulders, and to bring that roundness to the top of my physique for sure.
Yeah.
You can always work a little bit more on back width, a little bit more on chest thickness. Also, too, I think training my abs a lot more to bring that thick waist, to bring more detail in my midsection is something that I want to do a little bit more of. And obviously, yeah, we can always train our calves a little bit more. But there are kind of three main areas that I really want to be bringing up in this off season for sure.
Okay, so Scotty's obviously got a freaking group having lunch near him or something.
Everyone's, well, to be honest, everyone's started. They start on the beers here at like 9 a.m. There's bin tanks everywhere, but the pool bar area, people are starting to get a little bit busier. Can you hear all that in the background, can you?
Yeah, we're hoping you might be able to walk the laptop around, just give us a little tour before we sign off, just for the YouTubers.
I'll just show you.
Come on, give us a little.
Hold on. So that's all the lobby area, but this is the I don't know if you can see, but the water. The
Where are you
ocean's just
staying?
down there.
That looks awesome. Swimming pool.
Yeah, it's good. At the double six. Whenever we're in Semiac, we normally say at the double six or the W, but yeah, the double six is good. Kids are upstairs, hopefully not causing too much chaos. Yeah, we'll definitely have to get them out and get some food soon. But no, it's good, man.
Yeah, well, thanks for jumping on in Bali. So both
No,
Scott
of course.
and I got a podcast from Bali. So MT, it's your turn to go to Bali and do a potty from there.
I've never been to Bali, so I definitely.
Hey, maybe it's a prep coach podcast, boys. Bali weekend. But we can. We'll take the girls too.
Do you know though? There's a season A show in Bali and the season B show after the Nationals. We're speaking to Tony at Brisbane. Is going to be in Bali as well. So you'll be coming over for that one, yeah?
If you're doing it, I'm there, dude.
No, but as in season A, will you have athletes doing the season A show?
In Bali?
Yeah, probably
I
not.
haven't spoken about it yet to them, but I'll have a chat.
He's
I don't know, actually. I don't know if that's 100% been released, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's out there now.
I love the Bombshell podcast.
And season A, I'm pretty sure is there. And again, season B, it probably hasn't been released yet, but there's definitely going to be a season B show here. It's going to be a good pro show too, from what I understand. So that will definitely be on my plans, I think.
Well, we're going to have to come to Scotty, mate, for sure.
We must. We need to be there. Man, we're a trio. Where we all go, we go together.
I have to.
That'd be sick.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Well, Scotty, you enjoy the rest of the trip.
Enjoy. Thanks, boys.
We will we'll chat in the next one.
Mike.
Sounds good.
Thanks for the
Speak soon, boys.
Talk soon.
Yeah.